Umlena Blat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Lamed Vav. We're actually up to the bottom of the page, and the Mishnah listed a number of items that the Chachamim decreed or interdicted, and that one cannot eat it, even though it's permitted in having anah. We mentioned already Chalabakim, milk of a goy. We spoke about, and then we talk about now about the oil of a goy, the bread of a goy, the cooked items of a goy. So the very bottom of the page, Lamed Hey on the page at the bottom. Shemen. La shemen shalahen, and their oil. What's the story with the oil? Shemen. Rav Amma, why would you ban oil? Rav says Daniel Gozer Olam. It was Daniel who actually proscribed oil of a goy. And Shmuel Amma, Shmuel says Zlivason shel kelim tmeim isartan. We are worried that which is exuded from the kelim of a goy are tamei, and that tumah will go into the oil. So the more right away asks, well, who cares? Sorry?
You mean like
you cook some in using no. That we're saying here is that their oil has in it, let's say tumah. Their oil that they have in their kalim, their tumah. So the more says, who cares? I see. Everybody cares about tumah and tara. If the few that do, therefore everyone else should be also. The reason is because we banned the oil from a goy because maybe they put in their pots and their pots are usher. Now, even though stam kelim are einon b'nei yomen, that means they're more than 24 hours old, and it's nice and tam of gam. Any case that comes out of it is foul. There's a machlekes of nice and tam of gam is usher or not, and here we hold that it's usher. According to me, I say the oil of a goy is forbidden because we're worried about which portion more didn't kashrus, then asad van heinrich. Therefore, it would make sense. Rabbi came along and said the name that shemen, Rabbi Yehuda, and we already mentioned yesterday that this is Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. This is the grandson, according to most, from Rebbe, not Rebbe himself, even though that's similar to Rebbe, who Bezdina Nimnu Olav Yitrua. They decided to be matrid. Why? Because they hold Neisha Tamagam Mutter. In other words, the ones who asked it felt that Neisha Tam, if a foul taste, even though it's more than 24 hours, it's us, and therefore they banned oil. And the Yehuda Nasiya, a couple of generations later, said, no, it's us because it's Mutter because Neisha Tamagam Mutter. And they overturned the original interdiction. According to Daniel Gozler, was Daniel who made this decree. Daniel Gozler was Rabbi Yehuda Vatale. How can it be? What Rabbi Yehuda many years later undid what Rabbi Yehuda or that Daniel did. But now what's the problem? Because we learned ain't bezdin yochel levatum divrei bezdin chavere, that no bezdin come along and overturn the previous bezdin unless im can godel him a big chachma over minyan. The Mepharshim have a very hard time understanding if a full Sanhedrin, let's say, made a din 70 Sanhedrin, how can you have Gadol b'minyan? Sanhedrin is 70, you can't get bigger than that. What does Gadol b'minyan mean? This is interesting. Rav said back, and he got very sharp. Simloi ludor ka'amrit. You're quoting me, Simloy, comes from the city of Lud. Shiny Ludoy, you can't trust anything a person from Lud says. It never happened. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi never was matted. You don't trust Simloy from Lud.
It's
not nice at all. This Simloy was actually Amalei. So Shmuel said to him, Eshachle, you want me to send the message to Simloy? We don't trust you? Rav realized what he said maybe was a little bit too impulsive or impetuous, and he embarrassed. Then Rav said, question mark. Just because they didn't find in the pasuk, I'm smarter than them. I looked in the pasuk and clearly Daniel asked it because it says clearly in the pasuk, but it'll be placed on his heart. Ashaloy is goyel, not to ruin himself, but pas bagam melech with the bread of the king. Over yayin, and from the wine it says mishtav in plural. The wine that they're drinking sounds like b'shtei without two kinds of drinks. What two drinks did he say he's going to refrain from? Echad mishta yayin, ve'echad mishta shemen. One is the wine and one is the oil. So, we had more bracha. Sometimes it's mazik you, and sometimes it isn't. I don't know, but he means he's not someone to drink more the liquid of oil. This is what Haman sent Achashverosh. One of the things he says is if a guy touches the wine, if a fly falls in the wine, they'll just shoot a fly away. And if you touch the wine, they won't drink from it at all. So they observe from Daniel. how Daniel behaved. Rav thought Ali Baisam that Daniel not only conducted himself privately, but this is what he legislated for everybody. Ushmul Sava Ali Baisam only for himself, but he didn't legislate for everybody else. Says the Gemara, B'Shem and Daniel Gazer. You're telling me that oil was exaded, handed down from Daniel, but Bali said, Avimai Nocha Mashmei Rav. Pit on their bread, the bread of a goy, Shmanon, and the oil of a goy, Yain on the wine of a goy. The way we learned in the first mission, the earlier mission, it sounded like wine is also because of Avodah Zarah. We'll soon see the real reason why wine is also. Ubnei saying and their daughters. We'll soon see what that means. Kula mishmoina asadavre. These are all the 18 things we learned in Mar Shabbos there that Beis Hillel Beis Shammai make 18 zeta. They put a sword in front of the shoulder and they paskin these has to be, and these are immutable. And you can't overturn them. So it's not with Daniel. Came from Shammai and Hill. Says the Gemara, "V'chitema also Daniel Gaza like you." Nobody accepts it. Well, it's Tamidi Hillel Shammai that Gaza. It's the same Rab who said that it was Hillel Shammai. So you can tell me that Daniel came up with it first, but nobody followed it, and then Shammai Hillel came along and everyone followed it. He gave my answer to the Rab. So what's the Rab telling some? I said Daniel. What's the relevance of that? Ella Daniel Gaza all Daniel said that in the city you shouldn't because we're worried about chasnas, worried about intermarriage, and in the city you all live together. You'll see each other all the time, but in the Suda you meet somebody infrequently. No big deal. There's no real chassid going on. Well, see, because they made another layer. They asked it even out in the Suda. That's what Rabbi was saying. Daniel, and then the next stage was Hillel and Shammai. Rabbi Yehuda Hanosi Heichi Motzi Lemisha Takanta the Talmidei Shammai. It'll come to everybody. How were they able to be Mata Takana overturned? Let's say it wasn't Daniel. But Hillel and Shammai, how did they overturn it? But now didn't we learn that you cannot overturn a bezin of Chaveda? The question we had before, Elni can't go to Melchach. That's question number one. But furthermore, if it came from Hillel and Shammai, Rabba says, there's a Tesis somewhere else where Tesis has a whole chakira, Bar Chana, the son of a person called Bar Chana. Or Bar Chana is one name. Didn't they say that the 18 things are an exception, that under no circumstance can you overturn it? You can't go to Chachma, you got Chachma. Ain't Shemila wouldn't listen. So first of all, the general rule, you can't overturn another bezin, and especially the 18 Dover, because the Sai Hill and Sai Shammai. And the reason is because the Shem say because they were moistened nefesh for it. They put a sword in front of the shul, and this is it. The counting numbers. This is the Isurim. AmarAmishav said, Matam Hoyol u Poshat Isurim Berov Yisrael. Shemen le Poshat Isurim Berov Yisrael. The difference is once a Isu was accepted in Klal Yisrael, you cannot overturn it. That's when we have the rule, Gadol B'Chachma Minyan and Hillel and Shammai. But things which were never accepted in the first place, remember yesterday we learned that the first 12 months they don't even give a reason for their Yisurim because they're scared that people won't follow. Why is that so important? It'll take more time because if people don't follow, the next generation can come along just to overturn it. It's never in Niskabel. It has to be in Niskabel B'Reifus Yisrael. And Yoshu Rabbeinu Botko Al Shemen, they looked around and they noticed on this particular Kiv Shemesh Le Poshat Isure B'Rav Yisrael. Interesting that oil was not accepted because Pasti the Shalmi says is such a difficult gezerah. It's Dava Shachai Nepet Kluyimba, and that's why the Shalmi has these heterim. There's a machlekes of Mordechai. I don't know if it's a machlekes Rishonim that if pas akum, we have these kulas. Pas palta, you're allowed to, or at least if you cannot find a pas Yisrael, from Goyish Baker. So there's two ways of learning. One way of learning is it was nespashed b'chol Yisrael. It's a strong thing, but because it's chaye nefesh, because this is a staple food, they decided to be mekel. To change the rule that they generally have. The other learning is, as the Mordechai says, it was never nispashid because it's chayi nefesh. It was never nispashid b'Rav Yisrael as well. That's why we have so many leniencies when it comes to pasakum, throwing a match, all these things, so many leniencies. But over here, he's saying shemen also is on nispashid because it's a common day. A food item that couldn't get around it. As Gemara says, the some said, "Ain't going to tibur alligator lambo." You won't make a gzeda unless the majority can accept it. So Taisha actually learned. Yeah, exactly. Taisha learned that you need both rules together. That it's not nispasha b'Rav Yisrael, and it's a gzeira she'ena tzibur yichol lama. If it would be gzeira she'yichol lama, but for whatever reason Eden didn't follow it, it's not what the Gemara is talking about. It has to be both together. And then the Rishonim say another thing is that even if it's not nespashit, and even if it's gzeira she'ena yichol tzibur lama, you can't just say, well, there's no Isser. You need another bezin to come along and paskin that the Isser no longer is applicable. So we had Gili, for example, right? We'll talk later again. That Gili was usher at a time and water left exposed overnight, and then the Isser is now no longer there. Because it's another thing. If part of the Isser, the reason becomes part of the Isser, and Kozman, the reason is there, it's applicable. And if not, it's not applicable. If the reason is not part of the Isser, even though it's a reason given because of the Isser, but it's not part of the Isser, then anyway, we had this whole discussion about Pruzbul, if you remember. And one of them said that if I had the ability, I would overturn this whole issue of Pruzbul. And the Gemara talks about how can he? It was a scabble everywhere. It was fashion. Hey, back to the Gemara. What possibly learn from? But made him the very curse that you are cursed. Well, you took on all these things that you said you should be cursed if you don't follow it, and then you steal from me. How goy kula the entire nation because you're not following it yourself. But it says here how goy kula. Goy kula in. When is it considered a law that you put into place and you're going to curse anyone who doesn't follow it? Only if the entire community accepts it. Yeah, if not the entire community doesn't accept it, it does not exist. Guf picked on the bread, Rishmana, the oil, Yena, the wine, say the daughters, Kula, Mishmoina, so these are all part of the Xedus of Shammai and Hillel that they put into place. What's business saying? What rule is there in Shammai and Hillel regarding a girl from a non-Jew? What Xed is there? Now, interesting the discussion in Gemara here. We actually had Yivamas Machlekes Rishonim and Rambam and others. Mahi, what's the case? Gozru Abnei saying, first of all, Nidas Mari Sasam. You don't have to wait till they already start menstruating. As soon as a goy is born, she's already considered a Nida. That's day number one. Day number two, and when we see the Gemara, the number two is Gineva Mashmei Rabba Kulan Mishum Avodah Kachavim Goser Behen. That this all has to do with Avodah Zarah. That if you get too close to Goyim, they're going to lure you into being Ovid and Avodah Zarah as well. The Chiyos Rab Acha Baradam Ravishcha Gozru Al Piton. Why did they decree ban the bread of a goy pasakum mishum shmanan? If you eat bread, next you'll eat oil. And it doesn't make sense. Why should the gzeira against oil be any stricter than the Geriah bread? My umma de shemen mepas. You tell me that bread is forbidden because next time you drink oil, you'll have their oil. No. And why is the Easter of oil any stronger than bread? Ella, this is how you're supposed to read it. Al pitan ushman, the bread and their oil. Why? Because of the wine.
So if you eat within bread and oil, you might come then to drink wine.
That's right. And what's wrong with the wine? So Claudia Gemara says, what's the Easter of wine? Because of socializing. And we're worried. No, then the Gemara says, and what's this B'nai saying? Why is it also? Because also bring you to Avodah Zarah. What's this Davar? And Davar Acher, Mishum Davar Acher. Now there's another saying here, Davar Acher because of Davar Acher. In other words, there's another thing which we haven't discussed openly is forbidden because of another thing. What's going on here? So the Gemara, we'll talk about later. So the Gemara, let's understand now when I say the daughters. What do you mean you proscribe the daughters? From what? What was this takana from Hillel and Shammai? Yuchas Dollar. You're not allowed to marry the girls. But I see. You're not allowed to marry the girls. No, tell you. The Siva says, Loi tischat bum. That you're not allowed to marry them. It has nothing to do, and we discussed this last time, if there's an Isra like this Chatan Bum marrying a guy, because there is no marriage by guy. So in fact, many Rishonim hold that, and based on the Gemara, like this Chatan Bum means Dafke, if they convert, and it's talking about the Zayin Amin, as we'll soon see, if they convert, they're a Yid, but like this Chatan Bum. But a Kozman in the Geder of a guy, there's no Isra Mahatayra of marriage, because those things is marriage. We don't recognize the marriage, nothing happens. So Taisa says we're talking about the second half of the pasuk, and then he brings precedence where you find a lot of times you might bring one part of the pasuk. In fact, the whole limit is from the other part of the pasuk, where it says the Yasser is bincha. So that's anyway. So the latest it's an icy now marry a guy for the Torah. You don't need Hillel and Shammai to come along and Aser marrying a guy.
According to if it's Manda Omer who says it's talking about after their Megaya.
No. But yeah, but that's not talking about here. Talking about here a goy. He's saying is the guy was from Easter or something saying. Talking about a cold man there a goy. Came along Sham and he said, you're not allowed to marry a goyish woman. So Gemara asks, how tell you not allowed to marry a goyish woman? Because it says in the end of the pasuk you shouldn't marry because ki yasir is mincha, and that applies to any nation, as we will see in a minute. So the Gemara Zion Umas. If you look at that pasuk, the context of that pasuk is clearly talking how to behave with the local nations that are living in Israel at the time, and they should let them live and so on. Avo Shara and Kabbalah, the rest of the goyim, you're allowed to marry. But also, Mahatayda. They came along, the Gazan, I feel the Shad they came along and said, even of the goyim. The Amar says, Rav Shimon Yochai says, Ki Yasir as bincha ma'acharai, that your daughter shouldn't marry, or they should marry a goyish girl, because your son will be taken away. Other places we say, like that, so about your grandson. But we're talking about this is how do we know the Easter of how you know that the child goes after the mother? Because if you married a goyish woman, there's no ki yasin, they keep tossing that she will take away your son because it's not your son. It's not a goy. It's only ki yasin and mincha, your grandson from your birth side is a yid, and because growing up with a goyish father, they're going to grow up in a goyish way. Ki yasin and mincha. Here we're learning talking about ki yasin and mincha ma'acharai. We're talking about your very son is going to marry a goyish girl. Ki yasin and mincha. In other words, it has nothing to do with being part of the Zion Ami. Any good. Sound like not taking on marry any good. But Rabbi's call him the sins. My eagle and Ella, Isha, Derech, Hasmatay, not allowed to marry a guy according to this one of Shemichai, Mahatay, that's also, I don't care from which nation. But also, what the Sham Hill come and add, goes and I feel there's they'll have even a casual relationship, even there's but it's not be tackets with the Rabbanon, but it's not from Hill and Shammai. There's Dina Shoshem goes, in fact, it predates Mahatay. And maybe it's even Mount-Torah, because it predates us. Even says a passing, like Yemi Yehuda, what are you going to say when he found out about Tamar? Because you had a really casual thing, and you have to be burnt. Even casual, you're not allowed to. I think they were eating them before Mount Torah and with a goy. So what did Hillel Shammai add? So the Gemara Ella, the other I said, a guy who has a relation with a Yiddish girl is a problem. That was a Maisa with Thomas, she was a Yiddish girl, and then with a guy had relations, the Moshcha Masrei, he will be able to sway her because the men were more domineering and entice her to join him in Avodah Zarah Daf. Of Yisrael, but Mahatayah, it would be the other way around. It wouldn't be the case of Tamar, and we're making a distinction between the male, the Yid, and the male and the guy. But if a Yid with a non-Jewish woman, like Mahatayah is no issue because she will not lead him astray. How can we say that when we had the whole Ma'aser just now Balak? Exactly, we're so forget because the girls who led the boys astray. That's the other way around. But also, Gozan Afilu Yisrael Haba Havedechamim. And came along Yerusham, and they asked that even eat on the goy. But the Gemara Yisrael, let's come back to what you were just saying. That what they added was a casual relationship between a Yid and a non-Jewish woman. Yisrael Haba Havedechamim. We learned Haba also possible. Haboy Laram is kind of boy. That if what happens if you see a casual. So the Gemara continues it. Even a casual relationship with a non-Jewish woman, the Torah clearly forbids it. So one answers like this: there are rights according to the Torah. What's the story of Cosby, a man and a Goyish woman was for Hessian, like a Chil Hashem involved there. It's, open in public. There's promiscuity, but over Ma'aser Shahoya, that can happen. Well, so goes up a little bit thinner. They came along and said even discreet, casual relationship between a Jewish man and a non-Jewish woman is forbidden. So you want to be sinanami bezdin shechashmanai gazru. A couple of generations before Hillel and Shammai, because Chashmonai was 204 years and 206 years, and Hillel and Shammai 103 years before the Churban of the second base of Mikdash. So the Chayda was already decreed earlier. Why are we giving credit to Hillel and Shammai? The Bezdin Chashmonai already decreed that Yisrael habo al aved chadmin for Yid casual relationship with a non-Jewish woman chayiv. Mishum the Chayiv Mishum Nashga. We made four. We said none is a din of a nida. And even though Mahatayda there's no din of nida by a non-Jewish woman, and also because of a shivcha, as if you marry them, and Gimel is what do you call it? The Aleph, the H is Ish, and the Gimel is what's the Gimel again? I forgot. Oh, sorry, Goya. Okay, and so Rabban asked four things already in time of Chashmonaim, or others say he said Najgaz, that Zion is a Zoina, not because of H Ish, because of Zoina. Nevertheless, it predates Shammai and Hill. Says the Gemara, key goes to Bezach Bia. They only asked it having intimate relations. Well, yichud loy, but just to be secluded, they didn't ban. Lasina goes up for the yichud, and what Hillel and Shammai added was, it's amazing. We started off thinking that they banned Bechal getting married, and now suddenly we're down to just being alone in the room with them, but nothing more than that. So the Gemara, even yichud. Nami, Bezin Shal David Gazer. We know that Dor Melchari was Geyser, the idea of Yichud. Because the Amar, we learned, at that moment, Gazru al Yichud, they asked the Yichud, when the Gevaina came and all that. Amri, Hasam Yichud the Bas Yisrael. What David Melech decreed banned was against being alone with a Jewish woman. And we had the Gemara Kedushin, they were talking about the same thing, this whole discussion, whether it was a Penuya, a single woman, or a married woman. Avo Yichud of the life. Didn't answer the yichud with a non-Jewish woman, because the whole list of casual non-Jewish women that is only darbon. Well, so in the Gaza, I feel like yichud of Yechad. They asked another layer, even a guy. So the Gemara yichud the bas soul that I see. Well, David and Melech came along and banned the yichud of being alone with a Jewish woman. It's not Torah. How do you know? It says if you'll be convinced or seduced. Your brother Beni Mecha, the son of your mother. We're talking about seduction. What's the relevance of the son of your mother, the son of your father? Ben Aim Macy's, Ben of Ain and Macy's, what your paternal father does not in any way seduce you. Elo, we're talking about seduction. Ben Misyachid Im Ima, the only ones who can be together won't be seduced as a son with his mother. But you can't be miyachid, and nobody else can be miyachid because you never know. So you see that yichud is the ISIS, or what in the world did David Melech ban, and then what did Hillel Shammai ban? So what it says, yichud that ISIS is a married woman. Also, David came along, still talking about Yiddish women, but even a single woman. So that's where we leave. The whole by Shammai and Hill was the yichud with a non-Jewish woman. Says the Gemara, what did you mean when you say Davar Achar Mishum Davar Achar? What's that all about? Okay, we finished with the saying, we worked out what you mean. What do you mean Davar Achar Mishum Davar Achar? Gozru al Tinuk Oivik Chavim, we were geyser that a goy, a Tinuk, a child. Sheyitma should also be Tameh Beziva. Even though they never saw anything, they were a little child, an infant, they still have the dinim of a zav, but things that they touch become tummy and so on. So we want to keep a distance, the males from the males as well. I worked very hard. By Rabasi, and Hitzar doesn't mean I was in pain. It means Rashi says I worked very hard. I had a question and I was nudging them, pestering them to give me an answer. And Abasi ate Rabbi Yechon, and in turn Abasi by Rabbi Yechon, and Rabbi Yechon ate Rabbi Yanai, and Rabbi Yanai ate Rabbi Nosson ben Amram, and Nosson ben Amram ate Rabbi. We're having more about Master Nosson was a big man. Tinuk Oivik Chavim, Me'emasai Metamazir. What age? The Chachamim said that a Tinuk Goy also raised Metamazir Beziva. What age? And Romali and Rabbi said, I was told it came down Ben Yemai, just like by a girl as soon as born. The same thing we said on top of the page by a girl. Because it was Kabbalah, but I went to Abchia, Omali, he told me, no. Ben Tes Shanim Yimechad, 9 years old when the row will be. Not anything less than that is not shaykh. Especially we talk about Mishkav Zachar, so it's 9 years old. So the Gemara, I went back to Rebbe and I told what Abchia said. Omali, you know what? Hanach devorai, forget what I said. The echad divir Abchia. I mean, that's real humility, and you should follow Abchia. The 9 years old in a day. Why? The whole thing is because of beer, right? Because of Mishka Zachar. So therefore, it makes more sense that the boy has to be 9 years old. That's Matami Ziva. So forget what I said about Tinuk Ben Yaimai, 9-year-old. Omar Avin Hilcha, therefore, Hotinoikis. Let's talk about a girl now. Oivedes Kachavim, when we said they have a din of a dinner, Bas Gimel Shanim Mechad, have to be again Roel Labir, so they have to be 3 years old in a day. Hoyel Beruel Labir is Matam Nami Beziva. If the whole idea is, that she's a tree like a niddah, so it should be an age when they're shaykh, 3 years old. Telling you about a pshita. I mean, it's obvious. Why under 3 would you make her like a nida? Thinking about a name. Mautem, I would have thought. Hi, Yodel Iguli, when it comes to a boy at 9 years old, is already shaykh to try to seduce you. We're worried about Mishkav Zachar, okay. But the whole Yodel Aguli, but Shenkein, a girl, even 3 years old, it's not a question of seduction here because she's not shaykh at all. Never. So I would have thought, therefore, maybe you should wait till she's 9 years old. Also a little bit mature. We're worried about that she's going to attract you and then go to Avodah Zarah. Whatever it is, it should be of an age that has a little seichel. But you don't have to convince you, seduce you. Kamashlan comes to teach you that even as soon as she's roll the bia, even though she's not seducing you, it is awesome. Stop the hill tomorrow, Mitzvah.